Nothing's more hateful than failing to protect the one you love.
In a world filled with liars, traitors, and monsters in both armor and silk, one woman stood tall, not just because of her height, but because of her unwavering honor. Brienne of Tarth isn't your typical Game of Thrones character. She doesn't play the Game of Thrones. She doesn't scheme or betray. And yet, she survives. Not just survives, she thrives. This is the story of a woman born into ridicule, driven by duty, mocked by men, and yet she became a knight greater than most. This is Brienne of Tarth, the true knight of Westeros. Brienne was born the only living child to Lord Selwyn Tarth, ruler of the island of Tarth, also known as the Sapphire Isle. Beautiful name, beautiful land. But for Brienne, life was never beautiful. Tall, strong, broad-shouldered. Even as a girl, she defied the societal norms of what a noble woman should look like. From the start, she was teased, mocked, and rejected, referred to cruelly as Brienne the Beauty, a name soaked in sarcasm. In the books, George R.R. Martin paints her childhood in more detail. Betrothals fell through because of her looks. She was humiliated at dances. But where others would break, Brienne found strength. Instead of silk dresses, she chose armor. Instead of embroidery, she picked up the sword. And despite being mocked, she trained. She fought, she bled, and she kept going. That's the first layer of Brienne's character, resilience, the kind that isn't loud but stubborn, quiet, unshakable. Brienne's true rise began when she entered a tournament in the service of Renly Baratheon. Clad in armor, she defeated Loras Tyrell, a famed knight, before a crowd that couldn't believe their eyes. Renly, seeing more than just brute strength, named her to his Kingsguard. For Brienne, it was a dream come true. She wasn't just a knight, she was a protector. She had purpose. But her joy was short-lived. Renly was assassinated by a shadow born of Melisandre's magic. Blamed for his death, Brienne fled with Catelyn Stark. And here, her story truly begins to shift. Because Catelyn doesn't just see a warrior, she sees a woman trying desperately to live by a code the world doesn't respect anymore. Honor, oaths, loyalty. Brienne swears an oath to Catelyn to find and protect her daughters, and that oath becomes the spine of her entire journey. If there's one relationship that defines Brienne's arc, it's her bond with Jaime Lannister. What starts as a hostage transport mission turns into one of the most complex, layered, and heart-wrenching dynamics in the entire series. When they first meet, Jaime is the Kingslayer, the arrogant, fallen knight with a golden hand and a tarnished name. Brienne is the stubborn idealist who believes in the old code of knighthood. They despise each other at first. But over miles of mud, battlefields, and shared trauma, something begins to shift. Brienne sees the pain beneath Jaime's smirks. She sees the man who lost his reputation to save a city. And Jaime? He sees someone who actually believes in knighthood. Someone who lives the honor he abandoned long ago. In the infamous bathhouse scene, we see Jaime at his most vulnerable, revealing the truth behind his nickname. And Brienne, she listens. She doesn't mock. She doesn't flinch. She sees him. This is where Game of Thrones excels, not in dragons or wars, but in moments like this. Two broken people finding connection through shared scars, and later, Jaime returns that respect. He gives her his Valyrian steel sword, naming it Oathkeeper, a symbol, a passing of trust. A knighted soul recognizing another. Anne doesn't just swear oaths, she keeps them. When everyone else gives up on the Stark girls, she doesn't. She spends seasons searching, tracking, protecting. She saves Podrick Payne and trains him, not as a squire, but as a human being, with compassion, patience, strength. She finds Sansa, offers her protection, even stands against Littlefinger, one of the most manipulative men in Westeros, and eventually, she stands trial by combat against the Hound to protect Arya. It's one of the most brutal and emotional duels in the show. Two protectors, two broken souls, fighting for a girl neither can truly protect. But Brienne wins. Not because she's stronger, but because she has purpose. She isn't trying to survive, she's trying to keep a promise. Of all the moments in Game of Thrones, few are as emotionally pure as the one when Jaime knights Brienne. The war with the dead is approaching. They may all die tomorrow, but tonight, they laugh, drink, and share warmth. And then, Jaime does it. He calls her forward. "Kneel, Lady Brienne." And with real weight in his voice, he declares, "In the name of the warrior, I charge you to be brave. In the name of the mother, I charge you to defend the innocent. Arise, Brienne of Tarth, a knight of the Seven Kingdoms." And the room erupts into quiet, genuine applause. It's the moment she always dreamed of, but never dared ask for. Because women weren't allowed to be knights, but Brienne? She didn't need the title. She was already one. Still, to be seen, finally, by the man she respected, the world she protected, and herself, that mattered. This wasn't fan service. This was fulfillment. But even Brienne isn't invincible. Her relationship with Jaime turns romantic, briefly. A moment of tenderness between two people who spent their lives being judged, used, or forgotten. But Jaime leaves. He returns to Cersei, to his doom. And in that, Brienne is left heartbroken. Yet she doesn't crumble. In the final episode, she becomes Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. And in a poetic moment, she finishes writing Jaime's story in the White Book, the official record of every Kingsguard. She doesn't write about his betrayal or his incest. She writes of his bravery, his sacrifice, his redemption. Because Brienne is merciful, and even in heartbreak, she honors those she once loved. Brienne of Tarth never won the Iron Throne. She never commanded armies. She wasn't prophesied. She wasn't chosen. But she chose herself. She lived with integrity. She fought for the weak. She stood her ground. She showed the world that being a knight isn't about armor, gender, or noble birth. It's about honor. It's about loyalty. It's about oaths. In a realm that devours the innocent and rewards the wicked, Brienne of Tarth stood tall. Not just as a knight, but as the best of us. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dives into characters like Ned Stark, Arya, or Tyrion, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Which character should we cover next? Until then, hold your oaths, draw your swords, and remember, true honor is never out of fashion.